I'm Afro-Latina. Of course, people are going to be shocked when they hear me speak Spanish and then proceed to tell me, wow, your Spanish is actually good. I'm Afro-Latina. Of course, people are going to automatically assume I must be Dominican because they think that that's the only Latin country with a black population. Y para que sepan, soy Dominicana, but we're not the only black Latinos. I'm Afro-Latina. Even when I try speaking Spanish to someone who may be struggling to speak in English because they didn't know that I could speak Spanish, they're still going to speak to me in English and struggle. I'm Afro-Latina. Of course, we're going to question, how can you be black and Latina at the same time? Like the two can't coincide. I'm Afro-Latina. Of course, I've heard arregla la raza from a family member. Like, our black isn't beautiful.
The Real Talk Corner. We back. We in the building. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, fighting my way through the darkness where the wicked don't rest. Conscious aware, truth I dare, shield tied to my chest. My tenacity can put these motherfuckers to the test. High priestess of fire, alchemistic desire. I say manifest and shit, even when I am tired. You can call me amazing, by the bricks I be laying, but you'll never call me lazy, cause my vice are devastating. In the league of my own, spitting real talk energy. I know a little something about a thing called synergy. This is old radio, throw a sending masses awaken me. Listen up, cause we about to set your mind, body, and soul free. And we are back. The Real Talk Corner. I'm your host, Ariana, the Quantum Healer, and my co-host, Sabrina The Voice, in the building. I'm excited for this season. I'm excited for the content, just everything. I'm excited for it all.
Yep.
So, we bringing back some real talk, real shit, real stuff. That we're gonna bring to the table. Definitely want you guys to comment. Let's have some dialogue. I know, we could get some negative stuff. It is what it is. People like to be internet gangsters.
Right.
Internet keyboard gangsters is okay.
Exactly. Popping, just going in behind the scenes. But
right.
I'm ready.
And it'd be the most least educated people that want to say some shit, that think they know some shit. Like one of the videos that we're gonna play today. Just that when you don't know, and now tonight we're going to talk about Afro-Latin, and just some of the stuff that we've seen, even we've experienced growing up being from Afro-Latin culture. Especially me, my really light ass. What we've gone through, and me and my brother look like two little white kids when we were young. But we're gonna show some pictures too. I have some pictures of our families and stuff that we're gonna post so you guys can see. When it comes to Afro-Latin background, what people don't realize is we come in so many different shades. One baby can pop out with blonde hair, blue eyes, because of the mixture. We have African, we have Spaniard, we have, these different backgrounds, French, German, wherever the hell,
Indian.
Yeah. Also the people that were on those islands, Tayano. So it's like, there's so much that goes into, we're never just one thing. When you look at someone say, oh, they're Puerto Rican or they're Cuban or they're Dominican or they're Colombian, you can't just look at them and be like, oh, you're just 100% that. Because when you go back in the roots, no, we've been mixing for a long time, for this is way back. So I've seen also people have posted on Cardi B that she's not black. And they've said a lot of shit about Cardi B too. And the thing is that, and we're going to teach you guys something today about Afro-Latin and about the backgrounds, and that it is African descent that we have in our blood. And it's crazy because we're going to watch this video real quick, and we're going to talk about it, but it's crazy for her to say that, like, we haven't been through a struggle yet. I'm going to show you guys a lot of the struggle our people have been, because what you fail to realize is that there is racism within Hispanic culture.
Yep.
And from South America, you could go to any island and they all have been a racist, be dark skin against light skin from the beginning. Even my mom, which she's a firstborn here in America from her side, even my mom's grandmother, not 3 grandmothers up, my mom's grandmother was in a little shack on the property, and they had a big place in Havana. She was in a little fucking shack in the back because she was dark skinned. Okay. So that whole thing, like, we haven't had no struggle. Our people have had struggles. My mom's birth certificate says Negro.
Exactly. No, 100% right. My grandfather's Dominican. When I got his census, like, we did the census, and we wound up finding his paperwork and everything. And it's so funny, like, finding out my grandfather was in the war that was against Hitler. And it was so weird when I found that out. And even, my grandmother was 19 when he married her. And he's the one who took her from Puerto Rico, and even, like, I sent you pictures, you can post the pictures. My grandmother was blue black. There was no way you can tell me. And my grandmother was born in 1800s. I mean, 1900, excuse me, 1900s. Right. There's no way you can tell me that she was able to drink from the fountain that the white people were. No, she wasn't. She was not. And even to more recent of my mom was born 1935. So, and you can post pictures of my mom. So you're going to tell me my mom did not go through the same shit that a quote unquote Black woman didn't?
Right.
Oh, no, she did.
Right. People don't realize that other cultures don't look at us and say,
if you're Hispanic or you're Puerto Rican, you can drink from. No, it was either black or white.
That's what I'm saying. They didn't look at us and be like, oh, you're Hispanic. It was like, you're black or you're white. Because up until probably, I want to say the 90s and probably the late 90s, we always had to choose one, white or black. You know what I mean? I had to choose white because I can't sit there and tell, you know what I mean? No one's going to believe what I'm saying. I have to choose it. For my daughter, I had to choose black. There was no options for us. Then they started having options to pick the backgrounds, Puerto Rican, Cuban, things like that, because that wasn't on any paperwork for a very long time.
And even still, it's on there now as race. But for ethnicity, it's either Black, Native American, or white. Because I put Black. I am not white. I am a Black Hispanic. I am not a white Hispanic. I am not, an American Indian. So, but those are the choices. So it'll say for race, I'm Puerto Rican, but ethnicity is either Black, white, or Native American. I'm not white. I'm not Native American. I'm Black.
Right. It's like there's not a lot of choices, and it's like, so no, our and this is not even that many generations up. My mom was born in the 1950s. She went through a lot in them 50s and being dark skinned. I'm gonna show you guys my mom. My mom is way darker than me, even though she was still lighter, but she was dark. You know what I mean? Like when you're looking in society, when society looks at you, and we know how it is. And this is the crazy thing. And I'm going to do a podcast on this just because of the racism from Blacks, because it's like, you guys say you don't want someone to judge you from the color of your skin, but you're judging everyone else by the color of their skin without any knowledge. Just like, when people have to learn about Creoles in Louisiana, why they're light skinned, the mix with the French and all of that stuff. It's like, do your history before you just look at someone and be like, oh, you're not this, oh, you're not that, because you can't tell by looking at somebody. You don't know where they're from, what background they have. And like my mom, It's a few generations. Okay. This ain't like 20 generations back. This is
Exactly.
only a few generations of, so, and I do have it pulled up just to kind of talk about even when like slaves were taken to those islands. So I even have that. We'll talk about that because a lot of things is like people just think, oh, you're Puerto Rican, you're Cuban, you're Dominican, this, that, and the third. But it's just like, go further than that because
Exactly.
there's a reason. Puerto Rico, we know that the Taínos was there, but then Portuguese, they brought slaves over there. The Spaniards did. Same thing with Cuba. Spaniards went over there, brought slaves over there. It was a mix with the Taínos.
Exactly.
So it's like all of these places got mixed and they brought those
Hmm.
slaves over. But that was the French, the Portuguese, and the Spaniards that were going
Spaniards,
around,
exactly.
you
I
know?
tell people that all the time, like with Boricuas, being Puerto Rican, you're Boricua in our, um, DNA,
Mhm.
consists of Taino, Indian, Spaniard, and African.
Right.
We had Spaniard because our ancestors was raped. That wasn't part of our
Right.
DNA. That wasn't naturally our stuff. That
Right.
was due to our ancestors being raped. Whether it's 4%, 5%, 10% Spaniard,
Right.
that was not there naturally. That was
Right.
done due to, you know what I mean? So, and we all know they have Puerto Ricans who
Mhm.
identify as white Puerto Ricans.
Mhm.
That's what they identify themselves, whether it's the skin
Yeah.
color, whether whatever, but that's some other thing, obviously a lot of people don't have knowledge of self. And it is
Yeah.
what it is. They have like a whole movie about that. A man who was Puerto Rican or some kind of Latin and he portrayed to be white
Mm.
down to
I
living a
believe
white
it.
life. There's an actual movie. I forgot his name, the actor. Oh my God, I forgot his name. But he's playing in it, and he said he wanted to do the movie because this is real.
Mhm.
People are really doing it. They identify, even Cubans.
Yeah.
Cubans, they identify as white, like
Yeah.
especially in
They
Miami.
do.
In Miami, you cannot tell them that they are
No.
not any kind of African descent. They are white, and it is what it
Yeah.
is. People gonna live the way they want to live. They're gonna identify. I mean, we, especially in this day and age, we in
Mhm.
a place where people can identify as a season. So at this point, let's just be honest, you can fucking identify as whatever the fuck you want to at this point.
Real shit.
But know your history, know your shit, know where you come
Right.
from, stand, you know what I mean? Standing your I don't know. It's amazing to me the shit that I be hearing from
Right.
both sides. And even
Right.
seeing my mom growing up
Right.
as a kid, because my mom was dark, we'll be in the supermarket and we'll hear Puerto Ricans and Hispanics talking about her morena, this, da, 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 da.
Uh-huh.
And so my mom turns around and she flips the fuck out in Spanish,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they start apologizing, and it's like,
Mhm.
what? And my mother would tell them, like, why, you know what I mean, why are you apologizing now?
Right.
You just had a whole bunch of shit to say. So I've
Right.
even seen that as early as 80s, 90s as a kid, my mother
Yeah.
being discriminated against by other Puerto Ricans because of her dark hair, her hair, she wore extensions or whatever, how she wore it, and her
Yep.
dark skin. Like,
Yep.
it's ridiculous, the racism. But then to hear someone say, oh well, they have not been through what we've been through. What? And still to this day, still going through it, because
Yeah.
darker Hispanics, darker Puerto Ricans are still, like the clip that you're going to show now when it comes to movies and things like that. Who are they
They're
putting
not
in those movies?
represented.
The lighter Puerto Ricans, like the Jennifer Lopez. They are not
Yeah.
putting the darker, you know what I mean? So you're still to this day, but let
Well,
them
then
tell it.
also
Oh,
the
we
darker
experience the same shit.
ones have to go through way more conflict. No one questions the lighter ones like myself, right? We say we're Latin, you're Latin. They don't question that. Now if I say I'm Afro-Latin, that's when this be like, but the Afro-Latins that are darker skin color, they have to go through so much to explain because we do have cultures. The difference between like Black Americans, even when you compare Black American to like an African, someone who's over there from Ghana or Zimbabwe or wherever, they have a culture that they're coming from. The difference is, yes, we know that Black Americans were robbed that culture, especially the ones that came through on a slave trade. The difference is our people did not lose all of their culture because they were still on those islands, and a lot of it is mixed. It's mixed culture, so we have a lot of mixed stuff. But so that's a big difference where people think, oh, you have a culture, you came from here, you're just this. And we're not just Hispanics, we're a mixture. Like my mom's grandfather, so my great grandfather, he was Spaniard, blue eyes, freaking white. You know what I mean? Blue eyes. My mom, my brother, her firstborn, he came out with blonde hair, and they literally were trying to take him from my mom, saying that that wasn't her kid. And she was going off in the hospital like, you better give me my child. Yeah, because he was so white. And they looked at her complexion like, how you have this white blonde hair baby come out. You know what I mean? And she was going off because it's like, give me my fucking kid. So then the only reason people would kind of back off is when they see my dad, because my dad's my color. He's mixed Puerto Rican and Irish. Well, he has actually French in mixed there too. So there's a mixture. So he's light like me, right? And he went through the fact of people always saying he's not Puerto Rican. Oh, you don't look Puerto Rican, And it's just like, it's always this shit. So no, don't say we've not gone through some shit, because yes, our people have. And that constant having to, you don't belong on this side, you don't belong on that side. You're not light enough. You're not dark enough. You're not this. It's like constant.
And still getting it to this day. You're not on both ends. You're not Puerto Rican enough. Puerto Ricans are saying that. How you Puerto Rican? You're not Puerto Rican. You don't look Puerto Rican.
Yep.
The fuck I supposed to look like? Some rice and beans?
I remember that when I was younger. I had a lot, because especially I grew up in California. And so California had way more Puerto Ricans than Cubans out there. And of course, Mexicans, those, they were a lot more. So Cubans wasn't even really a thing. I really didn't even remember us meeting any Cubans. So the Puerto Ricans that were there, they would constantly say that shit, constantly like, oh, your dad ain't Puerto Rican and he's white. And it's just like, because he didn't speak Spanish. And my dad, he had a lot of issues growing up. His dad wasn't in his life, so he wasn't raised around any of his Puerto Rican people. So my dad chose to go hang with black guys. That's who my dad hung around. So they'd be like, oh no, he's just white. And it's just like, when you look at the culture, when I got older, I started looking to just look at some things like, is it true? Because you start to think like, what if it's true? Or he don't look like, but it's like, we got so many different layers. There's no real way to look, but what's portrayed on TV, what's portrayed in the movies. So if you don't look like that, oh, you're not Puerto Rican, or you're not Cuban, or you're not
this. So weird. Like, it's like you say, it goes back to being programmed, and us now having to unprogram ourselves for so many years. Like you said, even back to the movie Scarface. So they have Al Pacino portraying to be a Cuban. He is not of Latin descent at all.
Right.
And they picked this white man to play a Cuban. So it goes back, like you said.
Even look at the people,
shows, the movies, everything.
In that movie, they didn't really have Afro-Latins in that movie.
Not at all.
I mean, his sister was the only one who had the afro, or she wore the afro, the sister. But other than that, it really didn't have a portrayal of like the spectrum of the background. Because Cubans are all different types of shades.
Exactly.
You don't just get one shade, one hair texture. No, there's so many different.
And it goes back to even that with cultural stuff. Because I have Cubans in my family. It goes so far than just being Puerto Rican and my grandfather being Dominican, and having Cuban cousins, and you know what I mean. Like, it's just it goes so much further, and I think people get so stuck on, oh, Puerto Rican. When we all know, for one, Puerto Rico is a made up place. It's a made up word that they started naming Puerto Rico that couple of years, more than a couple of years, but that wasn't the original name of Puerto Rico. Then it became part of the U.S. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so much of, going back to what you were saying, trying to wipe out some cultural shit. And people
Right.
jump on that wagon to wipe out some cultural shit. And that's
Yeah.
to me what it sounds like when they're like, "Oh, Puerto Ricans are." It's just I just think people think Puerto Rico and just Puerto Rico, and it's so much
Hmm.
like back what you were saying, trying to wipe out our
Yeah.
culture. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like saying, "Oh, you're not black, you're not this." That is part of our culture. We're from
Yeah.
African descent, whether you want to accept
Yeah.
it or not. Whether it's the Puerto Rican who are accepting it, whether it's the black people who are accepting it, our descent is African descent. I mean, what what
Right.
what you're gonna do?
Right. Even like the traditions and religions, like not just Catholic, but Santeria and things like that
Mm-hmm.
that are the traditions. It's that the African and the Latin mix that created that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
no, you can't just be like, we practice with orishas. You know what I mean? Like orishas aren't, it's just like there's so much that's not known that it's just like, no, those are our ancestors also. We
Exactly.
come from
Mm-hmm.
them. It's crazy because I did a DNA test for my mom, and she was all damn near all of it was all the different African, different cultures. The top one was like Congo. And I was like, damn, Mom," you know
Mm.
what I mean? But I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this in as we go down, but she actually had been scarred so much about the whole black and white thing that she actually didn't want to be ever called black. She didn't refer to
Mm.
herself as Afro-Latin. You know what I mean? She didn't raise us with a lot of the culture stuff. Yeah,
Mm.
she played her music and things like that, but she didn't teach us Spanish. She was like more wanting us to be American.
Mm.
That's what she wanted us to be, American children. And it sucks that she was in a time where she was, looked at as a Negro. And the only reason why their life was a little bit better was because of my grandfather. So I am going to talk about that a little bit later. But we're going to play this video. It's a little irritating for any Afro-Latins and Latin people. You guys are going to get a little irritated with this video. So just a little advisory. But again, just take a breath. This is not to attack anybody or start a war, because we've already had that within our own cultures, where we've even been played against each other. Puerto Ricans against Cubans, Cubans against Dominicans, Dominicans against Puerto Ricans, and on and on and on and on. So we don't want none of that. This is to unify us and remember that we are really so much connected, and stop looking at fucking skin color. Like
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. But yeah, let's go to this one. Yeah, I was watching, I was like, oh, mm.
Mexicans and shit say and that shit all the time. Puerto Ricans and Mexicans and shit say, "Oh, we can say nigga because we not white." No, you cannot. No, you cannot. No, you can't. You're not black. Puerto Rican is not black. If Puerto Rican, what is Puerto Rican? That's basically white. Mexican too. So y'all don't need to be saying no nigga or anything in those type of aspects. It does not make you black. Okay? Cause y'all get more respect than us black people. Y'all haven't been through no black people struggle. Just like we ain't been through no Puerto Rican Mexican struggle. So we can't agree. But y'all for sure ain't been through no black people struggle. Y'all will never ever be able to be through no black people struggle. I don't give a fuck how many black motherfuckers y'all fuck. Y'all will never be black. Bitch.
So uncalled for. You know what I mean?
Right. That's what I said. And I just want to point something out. And I say this and in no disrespect to anyone. But the last part to me sounds like it's coming from a personal place. No
Oh,
matter how
definitely.
many black dudes you fuck. So first it went from no one being, Puerto Ricans not being black to now
Right.
black women. So now you're saying black women, well, Puerto
Right.
Rican women are not black. It sounds like that's coming from a personal place. You're yelling, the passionate, I hear the passion in your voice. But the end part, okay, you feel,
Right.
whatever. What was the
Right.
point of, the girls, no matter how many black men you fuck, you're not gonna be black? Where
That
did
part.
that come from? That sounds like something personal. Did your baby father leave you for a Spanish woman or some
Right.
kind? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it just came from a place that to me was not called for. Because now
Oh,
you're
definitely.
seeing women. First, you went from Puerto Ricans in
Mm-hmm.
general to now Puerto Rican girls, Puerto Rican women.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, she just sounds ignorant. And it was sad because I was reading her comments and there were so many people co-signing what she said.
Yeah, because
Like
it's the
whoever she was
ignorance.
talking to in the video.
Yeah, it's the ignorance. It's the ignorance behind it. You don't, that's the thing. You don't know the cultures. You don't know. You're comparing Puerto Rican and Mexican as like they're the same. South America, and if you look at the other islands, which Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, those are a lot different. Now, once you go to like Brazil, Colombia, those are kind of similar. But once you start going Guatemala and all these, but they do have dark skinned people. It's not that they
Exactly.
don't. Yeah, the Mexicans are kind of the lighter ones, and that's where the racism starts with them as
Yep.
the lighter color, and they're better than the Guatemalans or
Mm-hmm.
Panamanians
Mm-hmm.
and all of this because those are darker.
Yep.
So yeah, no, we've had struggles. We still have struggles. We're still going through this today. My daughter was born in the 1997. Okay. When I moved to Miami, and this was in Miami that we were going through, I remember little Haitian kids would tell her I wasn't her mom. That's not your mom. That's not your mom. And she would be crying like, that's my mom, you know? And it's just like, just because of the lack in the ignorance of your parents that didn't teach you that there's so many more colors, there's so many more shades of us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That people come in different shades, and you don't got to be white to just have a white kid, black, have a black kid.
Right.
No,
Exactly.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it sucks that, just going through those things and having to be looked at. And again, we go through our own stuff of we're not Spanish enough. And
No,
the
that's so
tear
true.
between that. And it's
I
just
went
like,
through that
no.
when my teenage years because I don't speak Spanish because my mother didn't speak Spanish in our home. She spoke
Hmm.
Spanish to my dad and to her friends. So when they came over, they would be in there speaking Spanish. But to us, she did not speak Spanish. We
Right.
picked up little words here and there. Like I can understand it. I do not speak it. Same thing with my sister, and I have three brothers. My three brothers, two of my brothers spoke it. They did it both. My other brother not so much. My sister not so much. Just little things here and there. But I
Right.
used to get that from other Puerto Rican girls, like, "Oh, you not Puerto Rican, you don't even speak Spanish."
Right.
Or
Hmm.
your mother don't your mother only speaks Spanish when she talking to her friends. She don't speak Spanish to y'all. And it was
Yep.
like, what? And like, oh,
Yep.
you not Puerto Rican. And it
Yep.
was so funny because I went through that a lot. Even I would say maybe like in my 20s also. I will meet other Puerto Rican girls and they'll be like, "Oh, you're
Me
not Puerto
too.
Rican. You don't speak Spanish."
Yep.
And it's like, no, I don't speak Spanish because Spanish was not really spoken in my home.
Hmm.
Not like that. We had an English home.
Exactly. And then,
My dad spoke English also. And my
well,
dad is Puerto Rican also. But it's like
mhm,
when they spoke Spanish, but to us, they spoke to
right.
us in English.
That was also
Mm-hmm.
a problem for us even dating because even the Spanish man would be the same, like, oh, you don't speak Spanish, automatically you're not Spanish enough. Because I remember going through that also, and that whole thing of like, just because I don't speak Spanish, I'm not Spanish. Like, what? Wait a minute, what? You just my whole background is gone because my mom can speak it now. I can read it, and I know a lot of words, of course, but she didn't teach us. She didn't. She spoke English. And I'm telling you, my mom wanted us to be American kids because you couldn't tell her she was black. The second you say she was black, she started going off in Spanish. The second she
Which
hears
is
someone talk, like how your
like, I
mom
mean,
talking shit about her, she started going off in like, no, I hear you and I speak it, But she didn't teach us. No, we didn't learn. She didn't
right.
teach us,
And
but
then
that
you
doesn't
have
make
to
us
think about it
less.
too. Like we're in America. We were not born in Puerto Rico. Like I was not born in Puerto Rico. So for
You're
you
right.
to be like, oh, you're not Puerto Rican because you don't speak Spanish. I was born in New York. I was born in a place
Right.
where the language is English. Like
Right.
I was not born in Puerto Rico. Like I
Right.
wouldn't like that wouldn't normally be my language. I was born here, like which is English. So of course I'm
Right.
gonna know English. But yeah,
That's
the part of
crazy.
the struggle part is just what kills me, because like you
Right.
said, till this day, I don't know what struggle she don't realize, but we in the
Right.
same struggle. If me and you and I guess her is sitting somewhere across some white people, what are they gonna say?
They know I'm
They're
not
not
white
white.
though. Ex-
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They're gonna say they're not white.
right.
So you know
Because
what I mean? So we're gonna struggle. We're gonna do the
right.
same struggle that they give at her, they're gonna give to us. If
Right.
they're gonna rip up the application for whatever job they're gonna do to all three of
Yeah.
ours.
My
So
last
when
name is
she
a
says,
Spanish last name.
so when she says, "Oh, we don't," no, we're still in this fight together. Like, and
Yeah.
that's the shit that I think pisses me off, because it goes
Oh
back
yeah.
to programming. So
Yeah.
now you all this time they done put us against each other for their own
Yeah.
benefits,
Yep.
because
Yep.
together we will be so much more powerful. Just
Right.
think about it. But now we're feuding with each other.
All the
Like
time
what?
on bullshit.
Exactly.
And
On
I
dumb
and I
shit.
I used to tell this to people all the time. I was never white enough because they knew I wasn't white. I was
Mm-hmm.
never Spanish enough, right? Because I looked white to them and I didn't speak Spanish, right? I wasn't black enough, of course, because I looked like a little white kid. So, and you're like, well, all my ethnicities don't take me in. I'm just me. Then fuck it. I'm just me. So it is sad. And it's not, we don't have a sure. All of the islands were colonized. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
All of
Mexico,
them.
like Dominican Republic, like it's amazing the dumb shit that I hear people say.
And even to this day, there's racism, even within
Mm-hmm.
our own culture. Our
Mm-hmm.
own culture still has racism against
Yep.
each other.
You ain't never lying.
They're not gonna look at certain people as, oh, you're Afro-Latin. Afro-Latin is not even really talked about unless you're in the culture and you're the Afro-Latin talking about it, because it's
Exactly.
just Latin, Hispanic. That's all you
Mm-hmm.
hear.
Yep.
And Celia Cruz, she was like the only major
Yes.
Afro Latin. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They
And
like
that's what I
made her
love about
mark.
it.
But that you don't that's what you see.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see much of anybody else. And you're like, there's more people that made their mark, but you don't never hear it because they're not put in the public eye. You know what? They're not pushed out. They're not talked about.
Mm-hmm.
They're not because they weren't white.
Because the worst thing that could happen to them is us knowing who we are.
Mhm.
That's the worst thing that can happen to them. If we all knew who we were and we stand in our God and Goddess energy,
Right.
they will have nothing on us, and they don't want that. So
Right.
continue to, to dumb it down. Continue to tell you you're not this and you're not that, when y'all
Right.
both the same, y'all come from the same, the struggle's the same. But
Right.
no, I'm gonna tell you you're not, she doesn't know your struggle. You're
Right.
struggling only. So now you don't
Right.
like her because you like, oh, she don't understand. No, we do.
Right.
And if we came together, we'll be so much more powerful. But
Yeah. We had a struggle. And, my mom had, like I said, she was born in the 1950s. So she was raised in a time where you were white or black. You were Negro or you were white. Okay. But black girls knew that my mom wasn't black. You know what I mean? Because she had a certain hair texture. So my mom got it also when she was growing up too. You know what I mean? And people don't realize that of not only do you have the white people coming at you, but now you have the blacks coming at you
mm-hmm,
because they're constantly like, you ain't black, you ain't black, you ain't black, And it's
exactly.
just like her DNA is more than half, you know what I mean? Black. You can see it in her features. You could see that she has her Afro Latin. Even like her grandmother. Now it kind of skipped because my grandmother, she's a little bit more light skinned. She's probably like your tone or a little bit, probably about your tone. But her mother was darker. You know what I mean? Her mom was darker. And then like on my mom's dad's side, they were all dark. He was like black, black.
Like
you
my
know?
grandmother. My
Yeah,
grandmother
he
was
was dark,
blue
and I'm gonna show
black.
you guys him, and I'm gonna show
Mhm.
you like my great grandmother, which you could see her African features also. So it's just like no, we our people. This is my mother who went through this, not 20 generations ago that
Mm-hmm.
went through this. This is my mother. And the only reason, like I said, they had a better life is because of who my grandmother and who my grandfather was. So it's the only reason why their life was a little bit better. And they were raised in like she was in the upper part of Manhattan. So nicer
Yeah,
side.
my family is from Spanish Harlem also.
She
Like when my grandfather, he was in the army, in the Navy. He married her, got her from Puerto Rico. They moved to Spanish Harlem.
mm,
So that's where she had her children at. And then she was like back and forth in Puerto Rico because she had
mhm,
5 kids, like my
yeah.
mom and 4 others. So they were back and forth in Puerto Rico, Harlem, back and forth. So,
Mhm,
but like it's just weird to me because even like with me, I'm lighter. I'm the lightest one out of my siblings, and that's because
mm,
of my dad. My dad was a light Puerto Rican, really,
yeah.
really light. So with him being so light, and then my mom, and then they made my color. And
Right.
it's weird because my sister is like maybe 2 tones darker than me. She's like
Mhm,
tan or whatever. And then I have brothers that are dark skinned. I have a brother who looks Indian. I have
right.
another one who's dark skinned, and then another
Mhm,
one who's like not even light skinned. I'm the lightest. And again,
right.
it has to do with my dad because if you see my grandmother and you see my mom, same like you said, the features, the everything. And it's funny because some people even tell me like you look like your mother, you're just light skinned. And I'm
Mhm,
like, oh, okay, because people used to tell me I didn't look like my mom. I used to be in school and they'll be
right.
like, oh, something like Puerto Rican, and then they'll see my mother and be like, oh, you're black. And I'm like, huh? Like, yeah, they'll see my mom and be like, oh, you're black.
Right. Right.
And I'm like, what do you mean? Like at that time, I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Like
Right.
Puerto Ricans are black. This was my response because through my whole life, we were taught we were black. So I'm like,
Right.
Puerto Ricans are black. Like, so what the hell are you talking about? Oh, you're black. Like,
Right.
what? I am
Right.
black. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm black. Like, what the fuck? It was the same in my household. It was the same word. Being black and
Yeah.
Puerto Rican was the same thing. There was
Yeah.
no difference in my home. Like,
Mhm,
and my mom, she's very spiritual, being a Santeria and all that, and into that type of stuff. They did the parties, they did the African dance, the congas, you know what I
right.
mean, all over dancing, the African. I watched it, I grew up on it. The parties, they did it, they played the music, the
Yep.
African music, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like, this is what so I always knew, like, this was different, like
right.
African, you know what I mean? So it was never like, oh, well, what's African descent? I always knew my descent was African descent.
Yeah. It's
So
crazy
it's just
how
weird.
being raised, because you're just in it, you're raised a certain way. And then when you get to a certain age, people start bringing this awareness to you, like questioning what you've known. And you're like, because I know people did me the same way. It was like, you're not black, you're not Hispanic, yada, yada, yada. But then they'd see my mom and be like, oh, you're black. And it's like, wait, what? Because like I said, my dad, people would look at him and be like, oh, he's white, he's not Spanish. And it's just like, DNA don't work like that.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
It doesn't. It does not work
There's
like
not
that
a
by no
Puerto
means.
Rican, everyone looks the same. Cuban, everybody looks the same. Dominican Republic, everybody looks
Exactly.
the
That's
same.
like my grandfather. My grandfather was Cuban, but he was a light skinned Cuban, which he
Hmm.
is my mother's father. And look how my mother color she is. My
Right.
mother, her color, because of her mother. But
Yeah.
her dad was white skinned.
Yeah.
He was Cuban, but he was white skinned. I mean, he was Dominican, but he was
Mm,
a white skinned Dominican.
yeah.
And my mom still came out like darker, you know what I mean?
You see my
Lighter
daughter.
than my Right, lighter than
Yeah.
my grandmother, but darker, and even my aunts. And they had the
Hmm.
same mother and the same father, all of them. My aunts, my
Yeah.
uncles, they all looked alike.
Yeah.
None of them were light.
I want to play this video. It just kind of shows the array of colors of Afro-Latin women. And you guys just take a look.
Cardi B's Afro-Latina, therefore she's black. Anyone who is Afro-Latin is black. Period.
Look,
Here are other examples of Afro-Latinx.
Notice how their complexion and hair texture varies, just like any other Black person.
It's like, hello.
Please stop with the Afro-Latin erasure. They're Black.
We come in so many different shades. So you can't sit there and say that shit. We come in so many different shades. And it's sad that we're still fighting amongst each other with the fucking racism. And then we have to fight with others with this shit. And I'm so sick of the fucking skin color shit. I am so tired of it because it's all you hear over and over. White man, black man. And it's just like, enough is enough. When the fuck are you just going to look at someone and say, I'm going to judge you on your character? Are you a good person or a fucked up person? Because ignorance is ignorance.
Like, you're a human being, right? Like, if you're an asshole, you're an asshole. Like, not shit to do with your race, ethnicity, your skin color, whatever. Like,
fucking, it's crazy to me. And I'm over it. And it's, I remember coming across this one thing where the person was asking another person, like, do you see race? And the person was like, no, I don't see race when I look at people, and they were like, oh, you're part of the problem. And it's just like, no, why do I need to look at people and be like, oh, you're black, you're white? Who gives a fuck? I care if you're a good person or you're a fucking ignorant person. Are you a bad person? Are you going to cause harm? That's what I care about. Your color of your skin don't fucking tell me any of that.
Exactly.
So it's like, no, I didn't teach my daughter to be raised into where she's looking at people's skin color. That's not how I raised her. But guaranteed, because she had longer hair, her hair's thick and curly. She was constantly you know what I mean? They constantly got at her. She was constantly made aware that she was different, because she went through some of the same shit. She not black enough. She ain't white enough. She ain't Spanish enough. Same shit. Yep. And it's like, enough is enough. Like, stop looking at people for their color. You don't even know the fucking background to someone to be sitting and talking about what they are or what they aren't. You don't know what their family went through to fucking get here. You don't know any of their struggles.
It's true. You don't know anything. You don't know. I remember my daughter being like 6, 5, and she comes home and she's like, Mommy, my friend asked me if I'm mixed. What does that mean?
Right.
And that's when I had to, explain to her what being mixed was. And to society, she will be considered mixed because her father's black and I'm Puerto Rican. But we taught her to know that she's black.
Right.
Because your mommy's Puerto Rican, right, granted. But your mommy's black. I'm black. So you're black.
I'm like, we're all mixed. Like, I don't feel there's no 100% anything. You can't tell me you're 100% fucking anything.
Exactly.
Humans been here way too fucking long for anybody to be like, oh, we're 100% this.
But you couldn't even say that, granted. That's like what I tell people all the time. I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican. And they're like, oh, you're Dominican? I'm like, yeah, my grandfather was Dominican, which was my mother's father, which made my mother half Dominican, which she is my mother. So I am Puerto Rican and Dominican. Same thing with my dad. My dad is Puerto Rican. So it's like my mom is Puerto Rican and Dominican. My dad is Puerto Rican. So then, like I said, then I have cousins who are Cuban. I have aunties that are Cuban. So it's like, like it's like you said, there's no one nothing. But I always teach my daughter and my kids to know that they're black. And even they go through it. They go through it with the Puerto Rican friends and the Hispanic friends, especially here in Charlotte. There's a lot of Mexican, so my son has Mexican friends and they're like, oh, your mother's Puerto Rican when they see me. So they'll see their dad and be like, okay, like you resemble your dad, but now I see this Puerto Rican. And then it goes back, like I said, we teach our kids, you're black. Like, we're
Yeah.
black. Like, it doesn't take away from, my parents being from Puerto Rico, which we're
Right.
black. At the end of the
Right.
day, we're black. We're not white. So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah. You can't sit there and say that. Like, I know that's how my daughter's looked at because she's darker skinned. She's not going to be looked at as white, regardless to what the fuck I look like.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
know what I mean? Regardless of what people look at me and
that's
be like,
right.
you look at me and say what you want, but I'm already
Mm-hmm,
knowing how she gonna be looked at. I
mm-hmm,
wanted to just look this up. This is Oxford Academy. So you guys, when you look up shit, don't just be looking at Wikipedia because anybody can fucking put shit in Wikipedia. Go to a trusted source. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of go over this really quickly and just kind of show you guys like this is why I do your diligence and don't just be assuming shit. When you assume shit, you look stupid. Like and I don't really like that word, but the girl, she looked ignorant as fuck because you're talking shit out of your ass. So anyway, in
mm-hmm.
Puerto Rico, if you look at it, around, you could see when Africans were identified over there, you know what I mean, as early as the 1600s. So what are you saying that they're that Puerto Ricans aren't African? You know what I mean? And it's not only just slaves because of the trade of, the people that came to work and things like that were open. So it's just like if you see that, you're like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Yeah, you didn't fucking know that. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
so African slaves weren't just taken to fucking America. Like, you know what I mean? They were taken all over. So
Exactly.
yes, they are. They are black. Some of them can come out white. Some of them could fucking come out darker skin.
Right.
I have pulled up all of them just real quick, and y'all could go back and do your own diligence and read through it. But this one was Cuba. Okay, when you're looking at that, and the like going to Havana and how many slaves, and then you see it's like the 1800s. You could see how far back this goes and why. Just even like my grandfather, which I'm going to show you guys a picture, who's darker skin. His family was darker skin, and they worked the sugarcane. They worked those fields. They worked those. That's what they did. It's like all in my ear right now. I think that's him. He passed on, so it's probably him in my ear right now. They work that. So, it's just like, yeah, they're black. You can't take away part of their culture because you don't understand it.
Exactly.
You just, that's not how it works. You're not like, oh, you're not African anymore. No, you are. Your people came from somewhere. There's a reason why the Yoruba culture is adapted into our religion and our beliefs.
Exactly.
We didn't just fucking pull that shit out of a hat and be like, oh, we just want to play with these Orishas.
No, you're right. Like it goes back, like, and yeah, people need to really do their research and really like.
When and I'm just pull up Dominican Republic. So it's the same thing. 1400s. Look at that.
Mhm. On my grandfather's paperwork, it says Dominican. He's Dominican, and it says Negro.
Yeah.
Like that's how they describe him. It says Negro.
Yeah, because there wasn't no other options. As I said, my mom was born 1950. That ain't that long ago. And hers, the only option she could was Negro. They weren't gonna put white on her fucking birth certificate.
Exactly. My mom was born 1935. Grandmother 1900. You know what I mean? So you can't tell me that my mother and grandmother did not experience the same shit that her mother or her grandmother and the
Right.
girl in the video went through. You can't
That
tell
part.
me.
That part. It's some straight bullshit. That's what that is. And the ignorance behind it is that. Okay. So this is my grandfather. This is my mom's dad. And he was a
Wow.
boxer. Kid Gavilan. That's the only reason they came over here, is because he got popular at boxing, and he brought his wife, my grandmother, over here, and she ended up having my mom in New York. And they would go back and forth to Cuba and come back. My mom, probably her first 5 years were over there in Cuba. She just happened to be the first one born, and then they had came over here and stayed. But that's her father. That ain't that many generations away from me. That's my grandfather.
Which is your grandfather. Exactly. Which is your grandfather.
Yeah, my grandfather. So it's like I'm gonna show the one you sent me with your grandmother. So y'all could see her grandmother. Y'all be playing. Y'all don't know. Y'all need to educate yourself.
Please do.
So
my grandmother is in the middle. My mom is the one with the scarves, and those are my aunties.
If you just seen this picture, what would you think? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you didn't see me. So you just seen that and didn't see me. What would you think?
Right. You wouldn't know. And that's why you should not assume. You shouldn't assume because you don't know. I'm gonna show you guys one of my mom and her sister's them at my mom's sweet 16. Back in the days.
Right.
It's hilarious. But so my great grandmother is the first one sitting down. That's my great grandmother. That's my mom's grandmother. Right behind her, the short one, is my aunt, my mom's sister, her little sister. To the right of her is my grandmother. That's my grandmother. If you go to the side of her is her niece, and the lady sitting down is the mother of her, but that's her sister. So my grandmother, who's in the white, and the lady sitting down in the darker color with the white flower, they're sisters from the same lady.
Right.
Okay. And then when you go the other way from the short girl that's in the back is my mom. That's my mom, you know. And then behind her, the two lighter skinned ones, those are first cousins of my mom. Their mother, which is not in here, but their mother is my grandmother's sister. They're all first cousins. This ain't third, fourth, fifth cousin down the road. So we all have these different colors, and then the guy at the end, that's my uncle, the darker one all the way at the end. So it's like, no, they all have these different shades. And then me and my brother came out of my mom
right
like white as hell. So it's like, no, you can't just look at them and be like, oh, that they're this.
Right.
I'm gonna show you
with my mom. Like if you see my mom, that picture of my mom, you're gonna say what? You're gonna say she's what? Like
right.
Like what race would you say she is?
Right. You sure enough I wouldn't say white.
Mm-hmm.
This one right here is my great grandmother on my mom's side from Cuba. From Cuba, y'all. If you looked at her, would you be like she's Cuban?
Right. Right.
Y'all wouldn't say that. So again, you really, really, really have to not just judge, you guys. And I'm gonna show y'all me and my daughter when she was little. So y'all can see the difference. This is her when she was little. That's what I spit out. It's
right,
like
exactly. That's what you made.
Right. I'm gonna show you guys my brother and the kiddos. Right. Some of his that we come in all different shades. So like, and this is a while back, but my brother is in the background. His daughter is to the left of him. To the right of him is my godchild. But then the little boy right next to her, that's his son, who you can see his blondish hair. You know what I mean? if you look all the way down, the little girl in the blue shirt and the little boy in the orange, that's his daughter and his other son. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so yeah, no, we have an array of freaking colors, from white blonde hair, colored eyes, to brown to dark skin. So you
Exactly.
can't just look at somebody. And I'm gonna just show one more of me and my mom. Me and my mom when I was younger. Yeah, it's the contrast. That's what I'm, showing y'all, the contrast of color. But
Right.
again, we were never raised to really look at skin color. The only reason why I kind of saw how my mom would act was when somebody would call her black, she would something would click within her, and all of a sudden she would jump into her Cuban, right? her language. And then if Spanish people were talking about her, if they assumed she wasn't Spanish, something in her would click and she'd be, that's the only reason. Other than that, my mom wasn't like, we weren't in a home of black and white and shit like that. Like, that wasn't it. It wasn't until I got older that I realized that my mom had issues with color because of what she went through as a kid. And then it started to become very apparent that even her issues with other Spanish races, like Dominican Republic, she had a problem with Dominicans and shit like that. And it was just like, what the fuck? Like, what is your issue? But that's a whole other podcast, y'all.
Right.
of
That
how they got turned against themselves.
Exactly.
This is me when I was a teen, and that's my mom. So y'all see the contrast. Y'all see the contrast. If y'all see my mom, you wouldn't be like, she's a white lady. Not even a little bit.
Not at all. Not at all.
That mom, she birthed me. I ain't adopted.
Right. Exactly.
She birthed me, So it's just crazy to me that people can sit and just be like,
all the time. I used to go through it all the time. My mom would come to school and they'd be like, your mother looks black. Like, what are y'all talking about? Like,
and you don't understand because it's not it's not a thing. It's not a big thing to sit and be, because we have so many colors. No one's sitting. Now, again, when you go, there is issues with the white and darker skin, but the families that have multiple colors, right? You have an array of colors. They're a little bit different because there's so many different colors, right? But there are some that are predominantly white skin and they think they're above every fucking body else, right?
Yeah.
And then you got predominantly dark skinned ones that were treated a certain way. They were fucking treated. Like I said, my great grandmother on my mom's father's side, she was in a fucking hut in the back, she was treated like help. My mom remembers that. She remembers her being like mean and in this shack on the property, where the other ones were the lighter skinned ones. So, my grandmother and her mother was lighter. They were lighter skinned, but still. So yeah, they fucking went through that. All right, one more. I'm gonna show y'all my grandkids, my two grandsons. Then these are grandkids that my daughter birthed. Okay, they ain't adopted. She birthed them. Okay.
Okay.
So to sit and be like, and if you look at me, y'all gonna be like, she white. But I guarantee you, sitting across from a white person, they know I'm not.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. That's just like with my daughter. My daughter, a lot of people say my daughter looks like my mother. And my daughter's light. My daughter's light like me. And so many people say she looks like especially my mom's friends say she looks like my mom. Like more like my mom than I do. Because like I said, a lot of the times people will be like, oh, you do look like your mother when they look at my mother. But if they just look at my mother, they wouldn't think she's my mother.
Right. It's crazy.
It's weird.
That's what, yeah, y'all do your research. Do your research. That's all I'm going to say. And stop looking at people's color. I wanted to play this other one real quick, which is it. She's an Afro-Latin. She's pretty known now. I think she's on a reality show, which I don't watch reality shows. So
Yeah, she's on Love and Hip Hop, and it's so funny because
okay.
when she first came out, she reminded me of my mother. That picture I sent you,
Mm,
I did a side by side of her and my mother, and I
okay.
was like, it's so funny because she just looks like a younger version of my mother.
Mm,
If you look at her picture and then look at my mother's picture, the one I sent you with the afro, my mom has the back in the days 1970 old ass picture.
uh-huh.
It looks like her younger. Like, and I remember putting it on my Facebook when she first came out. I'm like, oh my gosh, it reminds me so much of my mother.
Your experience been as an Afro-Latina?
Ay, niña, let me tell you.
Tell us. Okay.
I've had it all. I mean, it's hard because, and I always mention these women. They're amazing women, and I admire them. I really do. But it's unfortunate that when you talk about Latinos, you talk about Jennifer Lopez, Shakira, Sofia Vergara, Thalia. You talk about these women that look a certain type of way,
Yes.
but you never mention women that look like myself.
Right.
And there isn't a Latin country where you don't have Afro-Latinos, where you don't, Colombia, Venezuela, Chile, Honduras, like it doesn't matter where you go, there's black people. But why aren't we portrayed in the magazines? Why aren't we on movies? Why aren't we on novelas and soap operas? Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not, why can't I represent what a Latina woman should look like?
100%. Yes.
So then that's really what bothers me. And I feel that it's sad for the new generation coming up because they don't have anybody to admire within their own community that's doing well, that they can be like, one day I want to be like her, because there's nothing, literally. They just make it seem like we don't exist.
This is why I think we get so excited that someone like you is breaking the forefront, because you're also breaking the barriers of the people that hold the key to the magazine covers and the network stations and all that.
Amen.
And now we got to show America to get out of your box, because everything you see is not to believe what everything is.
It is.
True shit.
Yeah.
That's so what are you saying that Afro-Latins don't have the same struggles? Afro-Latin women or men, they're not being represented. Not in music, not in videos, not TVs. Like she said, novella, even novellas. My aunt used to watch them damn novellas all the time. You never saw Afro-Latins in the fucking novellas. It's only the Spaniard looking ones.
Exactly. No, it's true. That's so true.
You don't. So you can't sit here and be like, oh, y'all don't know a struggle. No, the struggle is really a lot the same shit. Struggles are very much alike.
Exactly.
So instead of beefing with each other on who's black and who's this, how about we unite and fucking change some shit? You know, the first one we had played when she said she was talking about saying the N-word. Now, of course, I don't say it anymore. I did when I was younger.
Yeah,
it depends on where you're raised. If you're raised in certain places, you grow up saying it, and I
say that all the time.
It's just what you say. When I got older, I was just like, I didn't like it when I really, you know what I mean? Because when you're younger, you just saying shit. You don't know the background, you don't know nothing, and then when you start to get a little older and you start doing research on stuff, because I'm one of those people who like to learn shit, then you're just like, damn, this is actually a really fucked up word. Why are we even saying it?
True. And I go through that because, especially like you said, being from, depending where you're from, being from New York, that is more a cultural thing. That was anybody is the N-word. You know what I mean? White, a girl, a dude. You know what I mean? It wasn't. You know what I mean? We would use the word and the terminology for anybody. A dog. You know what I mean? It wasn't. And even you said, as I have gotten older and realizing, I try to catch myself, and sometimes it happens. And even if I'm talking to my people in New York and, you know, we're talking, I think it's more of who you're talking to and when you're saying it, you know what I mean? And it's like, even then I catch myself and I'll say stuff like the N-word and they like, what? Like, because it sounds funny now, because even now, like, even sometimes when we talk and even when we're podcasting, sometimes it'll slip up. I'm sure you done caught it. I'll be talking about some shit and it's not used in that way, it's used just in, general of whatever, like I said, men, women, dog, whatever. But
Right.
it's such a habit growing up in that culture, growing up in New York, like Puerto Ricans, Black, whoever, we all said
Right.
it. It was never a thing.
Right.
Now, like you said, as you get older and you start having knowledge of self, and you're like, you know what? I don't like that word. I don't want
Right.
to use that word. I don't feel comfortable using that word. And again,
Right.
like I said, it's a bad habit. I'm 46, and even sometimes it slips, but I
Mm.
catch myself and I'm like, you know what? Even like I said, when we're podcasting, it'll slip up. And at the end of the day, some people may take it offensive and run with it and try to cancel me. And some people will understand, like, oh shit, you know what I mean? She comes
Right.
from a different place, not to make it an excuse, because it's not an excuse, but
Right.
I do come from a place where
Right.
it was normal to do. It was normal to say, even to this day, it
Right.
still is. But I'm catching myself. I don't no longer like to say the word. So I'm fixing that for me, because
Mm-hmm.
I say it. I say it all the time. I tell my kids, I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, and if they cancel me, they cancel me. It is what it is. I know I'm not using it in that sense. And like I said, it's not an excuse, but I'm
Right.
checking me. I know to check me. It'll slip out every now and then. And again, y'all can eat it up in the comments as much as y'all want, especially when y'all see. Because like I said, I'm sure y'all gonna catch it. Y'all gonna catch it
Right.
when I'm being passionate and I'm saying some shit, and it may come up. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
it's not coming from a negative place. It's not coming from. It's not coming from. Like I said, it's part of my culture. New York is a cultural thing. It's not a Black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican. It's a cultural thing. And if you're from New
Right.
York, you will understand. That's like when Fat Joe went through
Right.
his shit, and they were saying he shouldn't say the word, and he tried to explain, and some got it and some didn't. And it's the same sense.
Right.
I
Right.
got it because I'm from the Bronx. I got it. So I understood where he was coming from, but I also
Right.
understood what the people, how they felt. You know what I mean? So what
Yeah.
he does,
But we
people
know
shouldn't
if he was
question his
darker
stuff.
skinned, though, if he was darker skinned, nobody would even question it. And
No, you're
that's where
right.
we see the racist bullshit on both
Mhm.
sides, because if you dark skinned, then you got to pass.
Right. No, you're totally
But
right.
he's
And
light
I think
skinned, so
that
it's like, oh, you're not
he
supposed to be
shouldn't be
saying it,
saying
even
it.
though we just explained how Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominican Republic, Colombian, Panamanian, you could keep going on, they're all mixed with African.
Exactly. Right. You know what I mean? So if you want to get technical,
Right.
they'll be like, oh, it's okay to say it. To me, it's an individual thing. Like with me,
Yeah.
I don't like to no longer say it. I don't want anyone to feel offensive. And I don't want to have to explain myself. I'm going to just keep it all the way a buck. I don't
Right.
want to have to explain myself. So you know what? To keep the peace, I'm going to try to not say it. But if it slips out, y'all can do what y'all want to do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody who know me know it's not coming from the ill place.
Yeah. I stopped saying it. It's been probably over a decade that I stopped saying it. And it just was one of those things like, it was a bunch of words. It wasn't even just that one. It's a
Right.
lot of words, even like I used to refer to myself as a bitch, you know? And even that was just like, oh, fuck am I saying this? You just get
Right.
older and you're just like, what is the stupidity that we do? And you just stop saying stuff. So I don't even like that word. It's not something that I even use. But when I was a kid, growing up in my teens, we used it, and you're raised in certain areas. The language that you use is the language that you use. And again, that goes to the assumption. You're assuming you know where people are from. You're assuming you know where they were raised, you know. And I used to get that a lot, especially when I got older and I would go to like a new place. And then it was just like, oh, she's the white girl who thinks she black.
Mhm.
And it's just like,
Mhm.
wait, excuse me? What?
Right. Exactly. Mhm.
It's just like it's like I'm not the same thing. I'm not going to sit here and explain it. Although you'll hear us talk about it, because I did a podcast before on mixed children, just kind of trying to enlighten you guys about how mixed children get swamped in and lost in their cultural backgrounds because people don't do their diligence to teach them. And we are lucky in a sense, having all of our backgrounds entwined. in the race. So, yes, we were lucky in that way where it's all together and it was mixed in. And so we didn't necessarily lose the African essence, within everything. But again, we don't have to argue and fight about what is what. And I do feel more Afro-Latins should be out there and projected so that people can see, because this is one of those portrayals as if all Latins are light skinned and, look a certain way. And no, they don't. Far
And I
from it.
think that's where that identity crisis comes in, especially with the younger generation. They don't see people just like them. And now they identify with something that, because they don't know their history, they don't know, you know what I mean? They don't know, especially if no one taught them. They don't, they only going off of the skin color. So now they're identifying with a skin color, and now they are not, I've seen a few things like that, not liking themselves, not liking who they are, or
that happened to us. We weren't raised around none of our family. My mom and dad kind of jumped to California and everybody else was in New York. So I wasn't raised around none of my people. It wasn't until I got older that I started looking for them and reaching out. And then when I was 23, I decided to move to Miami. And when I got there, I was like, wow, this is different. This is, because in Miami, you just see all the different nationalities, and it was so different. And it was just like, I wish I was raised on this side, because I would have saw people who looked like me. I would have saw people who looked like our family, because our family did not look like the stereotypical Puerto Rican or the stereotypical Cuban, you know what I mean? Because it is a stereotype that people portray as, the background. So it was like, we didn't look like that. So when I moved to Miami, it was like, oh shit, now I see people that have, the same type of families, and they got all colors. And it was just like, oh shit, and then, meeting some of my family who are all different colors, all different shades. And I was like, okay, this is beautiful.
Right.
On the West Coast, that wasn't really a thing, in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't really a thing, especially it wasn't Cuban. Cuban, you had to really go and find where they were out there. It wasn't really a thing that you were going to come, because I remember even saying that, like, I'm Cuban. People were like, Cuban, like, what is that? I'm going to play this of her, Amara, when she's on the Breakfast Club. And there's a part where he's like, and it's crazy that this is like the first thing that you'll ask her. But I remember going through this when I was younger, of people, the first thing, and they would ask, I'm going to play it first and then we'll talk about it. And it was just like, it's some weird shit. Like, what's wrong with people? She just said, thank you for being here. And he's like, what are you? What, you don't ask anybody else who comes on this show, what are you? Why is it you look at her and it's like, what are you? And she got to explain it. And I remember going through this when I was younger, that what are you? And it was like, I'm a fucking human. I mean, last time I checked.
Right, exactly.
Am I an alien? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what you mean? The fuck? And it would be confusing to people because my mom and my dad, of course, are from New York. So there was certain words that I would say with an accent, and people would be like, you from New York? And I'd be like, no, I ain't from New York. But I didn't understand that I had these New Yorker parents that, and so some of my words would come out like that. And I'd be like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that. But I'm like, nah, I wasn't born out there, even though we went and moved there a few times and then went back to Cali. But that still doesn't, I don't consider that being a New Yorker. I wasn't raised there. So it's just crazy that people will look at you and be like, what are you? Like, can I just be a fucking human sitting here talking about, I don't like Charlemagne any fucking way.
Okay, that part.
He gets on my fucking nerves. But this, she just said, thank you for being here. And that's the first thing you fucking, what are you?
Thank you for having me here today.
Well, what are you?
Now I can hear it.
Like race-wise.
Oh, okay.
What am I?
Yeah, what are you? No, I'm Dominican. Well, born and raised in Miami. My parents are Dominican, and I am obviously an Afro-Latina. So yes.
So both your parents are Dominican?
Yes, both of my parents are Dominican. Right. My mom still don't know no English, a little bit. We're working on that.
So what is an Afro-Latino? I thought that was half black, half something else.
That's what I thought it was too. I thought it was half black, half Latino.
Well, the thing is that how we see black here in the United States is different. You think black, you think African American.
Right.
See, for us in Dominican Republic, because we're all Dominican, you only have but to say you're black.
I thought Dominicans didn't really mess with black and Puerto Ricans. I thought they didn't want to be black and they didn't want to be Puerto Rican. And
because if you're Puerto Rican, then that's what you are, and if you're Dominican, that's what you are. So you want to rep what you are or where you come from. So that's pretty much what it is. I don't know how it be out here, but in Miami, everybody's pretty cool.
You can always just say you're a Latino with an afro.
Yeah, I can say I'm Latino. I'm Latina
with an afro.
Even if I had an afro, I didn't have an afro. I mean, I'm still Afro-Latina because I come from African descent. So that's what it is.
You know, part.
Like, it's crazy how
it's stupid though. Oh, because you have an afro, so you're Afro-Latin. What?
It's crazy that she even got to sit and explain that you a guest, and that's the first thing you got to even explain is your background, your your ethnicity, and that's the thing of people don't get it, don't understand it. It's not really when you look. You just know what you are, but it's not that there isn't racism within the cultures, because there is. I would say probably not as much, maybe not as much now as it was maybe 30 years ago, but again, like you heard even Amara say that Afro-Latins aren't being represented. And that's why so many people don't know the backgrounds. So hopefully that changes, and hopefully people stop, and maybe you guys can educate the people, can stop talking shit about these actresses and singers and stuff that are Afro-Latin, that do have the background, and telling them that they're not black because you feel like it.
Right.
Exactly. Like saying, because you got an issue with it. Yeah, but the girl from the beginning, she was definitely hurt. Definitely. Somebody hurt her.
Oh yeah, somebody hurt her. And someone did not raise her to be educated. Someone did not educate her on anything.
Right.
On even her, who she is.
Right. Right.
Like I said, if my grandmother and my mother was with her grandmother and her mother, they would get treated no different.
None. Y'all just seeing, we showed you, and that the reason why we did that is to show the differences and how it looks. It doesn't all look the same. Everybody can look so different because the DNA is mixed. We are all mixed with a bunch of shit. Nobody is 100%. And that's why I used to get mad at some of like the Puerto Ricans I was around, because they'd be like, I'm 100%. And I'm like, you ain't 100% shit. Shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
And there are ignorant ones. Cubans, there are ignorant ones who don't even know their own fucking cultures and backgrounds.
Puerto Ricans who still say that they are not black.
And it's like, are you stupid?
Like at all. They'll be like, I'm not black. Same thing with Dominicans. They're Dominicans who still refuse to accept their African descent.
Yeah, and that's because of, again, all of those islands were colonized. Y'all got to remember that. So there's a lot of hatred that was brewing within that, and the separation, because if you were dark skinned, you got put a certain way. If you were lighter, you were treated a certain way. The racism was there. So that is why a lot of the Hispanic cultures, the Afro-Latins, were like, I'm not fucking black, because they was like, I don't want to be treated this way. Did that stop people from treating them that way?
Exactly. I was just about to say that. That did not stop.
Just because you say you ain't black?
Exactly. I was just about to say that. That's what I still don't get, because like I said, they are white-skinned Puerto Ricans. We all know it. Like you said, we come in all different colors. Skin color? Yeah. Oh, skin color is based on whatever. Your skin
it's a
color,
fucking
like
rainbow.
Said, it doesn't. Exactly. Some people, and there's some Puerto Ricans who are considered white Puerto Ricans, and they identify themselves as white Puerto Ricans.
You can't tell them shit.
They will not. Exactly. They will not. It's funny. I've seen another video, I'm gonna send it to you, of a girl explaining or trying to explain the difference between Black Hispanics and white Hispanics. And I'm like, you know, a lot of the times people don't realize culturally what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot deny your culture. I mean, I don't give a fuck what color you are. Like, you cannot deny your culture.
Yeah, you and like I said, my the only reason that's how I found out my mom had so many issues because of what she went through. But it was just like, the more you go, it's just like, how can you deny who you are? But that shit was fucked her up. You know, that racism shit, that, you know, being looked at a certain way. Because again, the white Hispanics treated them a certain way. And it was only because my grandmother made it a point to make money. My grandmother, she split from my grandfather. So yeah, he was a boxer. He had all this money, but they split. And she refused to fucking get welfare. She refused. She was just like, I'm gonna work my ass off. She brought her mom from Cuba to watch the kids. And she was like, I'm gonna work my ass off and y'all gonna go to private school. They went to fucking Catholic school. So back then that was like private school. It was paid for. They fucking went to Catholic school, you know. So my mom was raised with a lot of racist nuns. You know what I mean? That's where she went to school all her life. And y'all remember them racist ass nuns. Well, not all of y'all probably don't know the background, but yeah, there were a lot of racist nuns that were in there, you know? So she was raised with this complex of constantly having to, again, be called a certain way. But then to the Black people, it was like, you ain't Black. You know what I mean? It's like that constant back and forth, that push. And then you just be like, I'm fucking Hispanic. I'm this, you know, leave me the fuck alone. And that's how I saw my mom, her attitude towards race, which is wrong because we do have the African side to us. As a part of our religion, as a part of our background, is part of our race. It should be taught. But again, a lot of our grandparents and our parents went through fucking so much that it messed them up too, you know? And so when we say the struggle has been real for our people. So yeah, it may not look exactly alike, but there are so many Afro-Latins that have been racially profiled, that have been called slurs, that couldn't drink from the fucking same water, couldn't use the same bathrooms and shit. You know what I mean? So stop that whole assumption bullshit and pointing fingers like y'all the only ones who got some shit that happened to you. No, everybody got a struggle. Everybody got a background, and we all carrying the same African blood. You know what I mean? It's like, stop with the bullshit. Like I said, I'm so tired of the whole race shit. We are going to do another podcast on it because it's just so much stupidity out there. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's like, when are we going to be over skin color? Like literally, when are we going to be over skin color? Like, get over it. We all different shades. Get the fuck over it.
You're Black, not Latina. Imagine thinking you did your big one by saying that to me. You're saying that to someone que está orgullosa de ser colombiana, dominicana, y morena. Look, I'm a firm believer that you gotta leave ignorant people where you found them, but let me educate you a little bit. Just a little bit, okay? This is not the first time that I hear this. Did you know, and you probably didn't because you said this, that the slave trade did not only take place in America, it also took place in parts of the Caribbean, South America, and Central America. And before America did it, and I'm not proud to say this, but before America did it, and Google this, DR was the first country to ever import slaves, which is why you see a huge population of Black people in the DR. Not all of us are Black, but the majority of us are. It is 2023, y'all. And people still do not know the difference between race and ethnicity. Ethnically, mi mamá, que de Colombia, mi papá, que era dominicano, makes me Latina. Spanish was my first language. Racially, I'm a woman of color. I'm melanated. Now, let me say this, okay? Because I identify as an Afro-Latina, but I also know that I'm light-skinned. And because I'm light-skinned, there's so much privilege that I'm going to have, and my experiences are going to be different from someone who identifies as an Afro-Latina and is of a darker skin complexion. But people still say stuff like this, and this is what I've talked about so many times. Please, before you say anything like that to someone, just be educated, okay?
All right, you guys. Drop us some comments. Let us know what you think. If you guys had some experiences, if you have an Afro-Latin background, or if you're Black and you want to say something, pop it in the comments. It's okay. Again, this is Real Talk Corner. We will see you on the next one. Bye.
Yes, we will.